Welcome to Vinyl Poetry Lounge, where legendary lyrics spark poetic fires. I'm your hostess for the next hour, Jana Lopez. So kick back, relax, and let the words carry you home. Welcome to your Sunday. Welcome to Vinyl Poetry Lounge. I'm your hostess, Jana Lopez. So great to be here with you. I look forward to this time that we get to talk about music, poetry, lyrics, love, ideas, stories, history, nostalgia, all the things that music creates within us and for us. And truly to help you recognize that poetry is available to you everywhere, all the time, and especially in music. This is what makes me happy and brings me joy, is that oftentimes I hear people talk about all the ways they wish they could have some time to themselves, to vacation, to relax. And so this is my gift to the world, to give you that time to just kick back and relax. And so what comes from that is the recognition that these songs that we grew up with and probably sang a million times actually have beautiful poetry hidden in plain sight. And that just by listening to music, you have an opportunity to engage with poetry and to create and imagine. And so why now? Why here? Why us? Because face it, most of us have a hard time keeping our attention focused on anything. It is by some weird design of the times that we live in that we are being forced into overwhelm and artificial intelligence and a constant barrage of stuff. So much so that our brains are rotting. They don't have the capacity they once did to focus on things. So I think it's imperative that we actually exercise our brain by thinking and imagining and dreaming, and poetry is the best way I know how to do that. So that's what it's about. And so tonight, every week I try to figure out what song do I want to choose and why. And so tonight we are going to talk about Otis Redding and a song that he did, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. And I chose this song because it's truly a reflective song about time and the passage of time and basically taking life on its own terms. And that's something that I'm thinking about a lot lately for myself, is how to meet my life, meet myself, meet my experiences exactly where they are. And so this is a song about presence, a song about acceptance, a song about hope. And so that is why I chose this song. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of historical context, because I think that is one of the things that's missing the most in our lives, is the idea of context. People are so quick to take the top headline from the algorithm and call it good, but I believe context actually helps frame a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place within the universe. So context. So before we talk about the song, we're going to talk a little bit about Otis Redding. I've been fascinated by Otis Redding, and I feel like he was such a pioneer and just such beautiful lyrics and such soul. And he started off as a church singer and was immersed with blues and gospel and soul. And so he didn't really get the respect or recognition that he might have deserved at that time. And primarily it was because he was African American. And in the 60s, there was still so much racial disparity going on. I mean, not that I can still feel it. Here we are, 2026. So as I say that, I'm thinking how much has changed, how much has not changed. But it was definitely a factor in the time when he was creating music. So one of his first albums, Otis Redding Sings Soul, in 1965 it came out. And it features a photograph of a blonde white woman on the cover. And there was a lot of controversy around this. Later, it didn't really evoke a lot of conversation at the time, but many record executives feared that albums featuring Black artists prominently on the cover wouldn't sell as well, and they wouldn't reach a mainstream media. And retail stores and radio markets would probably react less favorably to it. So what did they do? On his beautiful work of art, they placed an image of a blonde white woman, which is so weird, looking at it now, because it has nothing to do with what's on the album or the songs in the album. So it's just interesting to me that this was kind of the beginning of his career. And it does lead to what I'm going to talk about with Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay. But being as it was, he had to comply and go along with what record executives wanted at the time. And it's one of the greatest soul albums ever made, and effectively it hid the Black creator to make it more marketable to white audiences. So 1 year later, Redding's next album, the Soul album, came out in 1966. And there we have a portrait of an African-American woman on the cover rather than a white model. So it does show that his popularity probably gave him some say with having more representative imagery than was on his initial album. But it definitely, between the two, with just a matter of a year, shows where he entered into the space of being an artist and his progression as an artist. And it definitely showcases all of the compromises that Black artists had to make during that time. And so I just thought it was important to bring this into the conversation about the album before we get into Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, because that came out in 1967. And so within just a few years, there was such an arc of time. But this is what artists had to face. This is what artists still have to face today. And I really appreciate that Otis Redding brought forward a chance for all audiences to experience soul and blues, and just his deep, beautiful voice, which echoes throughout and across time. And Sitting on the Dock of the Bay is one of those songs that we carry throughout our entire lives. And so he was born in 1941 in Dawson, Georgia, raised in Macon, and it was during a performance in 1967 at the Monterey International Pop Festival where he had the chance to introduce his music to a much wider audience. And so tragically, he died in December of 1967, and he was only 26 years old. He had already done so much and had such amazing impact. And he was killed in a plane crash along with many members of his backing band. And before we talk about Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay, that song was finished only 3 days before he died. He finished that song, and it wasn't actually really finished. And then he died 3 days later. So he was married to Zelma Redding, and they had 3 children. So luckily his legacy lives on. And his family, his wife, his 3 children, became stewards of his legacy. And they opened a foundation in Macon, Georgia, which provides music instruction and songwriting programs and instruments and mentoring for thousands of young people. So I really do appreciate that his legendary status, his beautiful music, and of course his lyrics live on, and we get the chance here and now to talk about that. And he was very much dedicated to where he grew up and being part of the community. And he bought a gorgeous big ranch. He was so excited and so proud he was able to do this. It meant a lot to him. And the property is still with the family, and they own it and maintain it today, as far as I know. And so here we are all these years later, and we're going to talk now about Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay. And so let's go to the first image of Otis Redding. There he is. Handsome, handsome man. And this song was jointly written by him and his collaborative partner, Steve Cropper. And the song originated from Otis Redding's own ideas and experiences. And Otis Redding had to move away from Georgia, of course, to pursue his music career. And so they met each other and knew each other through Stax Records, him and Stephen Cropper in Memphis, where they became one of soul's most collaborative and successful and prolific partnerships. And so in 1962, Otis Redding came to Stax to accompany singer Johnny Jenkins for a recording session. And when there was still time left in the recording session, Otis Redding was given the chance to record one of his own songs, These Arms of Mine. Steve Cropper was then the guitarist for Booker T's band, and he was a key producer and songwriter at Stax. So he was there in the studio when Otis was recording his song, and he was really impressed by the velvety, beautiful texture and range of Otis Redding's voice. And they became close collaborators over the next 5 years. So Cropper played guitar on many of his recordings. He co-produced many of the songs. They wrote together, and he was one of Otis Redding's closest creative companions and friends, and they were described as something was very much in sync with the way they created together. And so the collaboration between the two was great because Otis Redding came to the writing partnership with melodies and emotional ideas and fragments for lyrics. And Steve Cropper was amazing at arranging songs, refining lyrics, and creating memorable guitar parts. And so the album that they created for this was The Dock of the Bay. And the song itself was written in the summer of 1967. And this was after his very celebrated appearance at the Monterey International Pop Festival in June. And it was while he was staying on a houseboat in Sausalito, California, that he found the inspiration by watching the boats come and go in and out of the bay. So they recorded the song in 1967 in November. And then they completed it as much as it could be completed on December 7th, 1967. December 10th, 1967 was the day that Otis Redding passed away at the tender age of 26, and the song was released only 1 month after his death. So a lot happened in a very short window between 1967 and 1968 for this song. So the album has 11 songs on it, but because Otis Redding passed away before they could actually finish the album, Steve Cropper assembled the album from the newly recorded title track and several previously unreleased songs, and a few tracks that had appeared on some other singles and albums. And so what's so sad and beautiful about it, and I say this all the time when it comes to art, is that you never know what's going to happen from what you create in the moment while you create something. There's always that resonance. But this album became this emotional culmination of Otis Redding's evolution as an artist. And it had an introspective sound to it. And they believe, people and historians believe, that it was a glimpse of where Otis Redding might have started to go in his musical career had he lived. A little more pop influence, integrating soul and blues. And so that is the sadness of it. Now, this penned lyrics sheet, Steve Cropper actually painted and wrote the lyrics of this song and created this beautiful image from the lyrics of the song to honor Otis Redding. And when Otis Redding had returned from California in 1967, he told him of the opening line, "Sittin' in the morning sun." So they finished writing the song together, and one of the song's most distinctive features, which was very unique for music at the time, was the whistling at the end. Now, I can't whistle. That song, you know, when that part comes on, I always, I kind of hum it. I wish I could whistle, but it was actually a placeholder. It wasn't meant to be whistling. Otis Redding had told Stephen that he wanted to finish the lyrics for that portion. So he inserted the whistling to remind himself to go back and finish those lyrics. But he died before he had the chance to actually finish the lyrics. And so he kept it in the finish. Stephen Cropper kept it in the final recording because he said it really reminded him of Otis's amazing ability to just create from anything. And even a whistle became part of the magic and the mood of that song. And I think that's true because the whistling indicates kind of a casual, fancy-free, fanciful attitude of just observing. I think the whistling is very indicative, and this song is a song about observation. And so The lyrics are widely interpreted as a man who is expressing stepping away from striving all the time and struggling all the time, and instead learning how to accept himself and his life and change. And of course, this was a theme for Otis Redding because he had to leave his home and his children in Georgia and go to the West Coast and pursue music and becoming, having to do a first album with a white woman on the cover and bending the rules and giving in to demands and expectations, compromising the artist he actually wanted to be versus the artist he had to represent and become in order to survive in the music industry. So this song is really, to me, had he lived, I would have been so curious to see what he might have created and the choices he might have made. But this song really does speak to being where we are, being who we are, and just acknowledging that change is part of life. So let us dive into the lyrics of Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding.
And in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, and then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah.
All right. So, Sittin' in the Morning Sun, this was the lyric that started the song for him. And it sets the tone of observation, observing the beginning of a new day. And with that comes contemplation, reflection, and hope. The morning, the word morning, is very much indicative to hope for the unfolding day. I'll be sitting when the evening come. So he's basically going to be staying and sitting in one place, allowing himself the fullness of an entire day to just be with the beauty that he is noticing and watching from the San Francisco Bay, which I could totally get with that. There's so much to see sitting on a dock of a bay. And watching the ships roll in, and then I'll watch them roll away again. So this is a very metaphorical yet illuminating phrase, because as the ships roll in, they do what they do. They unload what they load, their cargo, and then I'll watch them roll away again. So basically he's saying, I'm going to be there for the full duration of their journey as they enter port and exit port. And that to me is an indication of an entire time in a day of just being and observing and being present to what is going on in front of him. And it's a very direct, poetic way to talk about the passage of time, ships rolling in and watching them roll away again. Just gorgeous.
On the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
So here we are, and this, of course, is the chorus. that I'm sitting on the dock of the bay. And I like that it's a dock. I hadn't really thought about it until this moment, but I appreciate that it's a dock, because what a dock represents is that you can go out to the end of it and feel like you are part of the scene. You're not on the shore, but you're actually over the water. And so I really do appreciate that image. Watching the tide roll away. So the tide could be representative of time and change. As metaphoric, we talk about tides rolling in and rolling out. And so instead of the ship coming in and going, now it's the tide that's rolling away. So he moves us from the ships and gives attention to the tide and the water. And that is just a beautiful image. And so I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. And I don't think the idea of wasting time here is really about wasting time. I think what these lines talk about is just being with time, not worrying about accomplishing something with time, not doing something or something expected with that time, and that everybody else might see it as wasting time. And I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this song, is because so many of us don't know how to just sit on a dock of a bay and watch the tides roll away. And, you know, wasting time is really about being with time, accepting time, appreciating time. Everything is moving so fast these days that to just sit and be with time and watching the tide roll away is essential. Our nervous systems, our hearts, our souls yearn and beg for presence and observation. And so this is a very powerful part of the song that, to me, conveys exactly that.
I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay, 'cause I've had nothing to live for, and look like nothing's gonna come my way.
This part of the song, to me, feels very autobiographical, because he talks about leaving his home in Georgia and heading for the Frisco Bay. And I've had nothing to live for, look like nothing's going to come my way. I think this relates to the frustration of being an artist and having something to say and wanting to create and facing the racial and cultural and industry barriers that came along with trying to survive and be an artist, and probably getting turned down multiple times and being disappointed. And so in the wake of all of that, just knowing that he's given up everything, left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. All my dreams are here. I've had nothing to live for. Where is the hope and inspiration? And feeling disappointed that maybe the dream would not have turned out the way he had hoped. And so this, to me, feels like an honest representation of disappointment and just accepting that things may not exactly go the way he had wanted or hoped for. So he's just going to sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. So either way, he's going to just be in the moment, look at the tides and the ships, and be with himself. And in spite of everything, this is also true, that things may not go my way. And yes, I'm sitting here in the morning sun, but I'm going to still be present to what's coming or not. All right, so then that leads into the next portion.
Nothing's gonna change. Everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Listen.
I love this. So accepting that things are the way they are. I don't think things will change, and that could be socially, culturally, racially. There was probably a lot of things he meant when he said, looks like nothing's going to change and that everything will remain the same. And this is an interesting next couple of lines. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do. And to me, that's all about the record executives telling him to put a white woman on the album cover, even though it was something he probably, I'm sure, did not want to do. And so making his own choices, his own decisions, come what may, not compromising. And even though this was something he really wanted, I can't do what 10 people tell me to do. And I like that there's 10 people, because I'm guessing he had a lot of people in the industry telling him what to do, from business to public relations to promotions to sales. So I guess I'll remain the same. I'm not going to make these compromises. I'm not going to change who I am in order to create what I want to create and do what I want to do. So I guess I'll remain the same.
Sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. Listen, 2,000 miles I roam just to make this dock my home.
So he says, I'm going to stay the same. So I'm just going to sit here and rest my bones. And by that, all of the stress and tension and expectations and loneliness away from his family, away from his wife and his 3 children. It's 2,000 miles I roamed. And his journey, his path, his ultimate sacrifices that he has made in his life to do what he believes in and do what he loves. So it's 2,000 miles I roamed just to make this dock my home. And what this says to me is to just be here now in the presence of my life and who I am and the things I won't change, and to be in this moment of beauty, watching the ships and the tides, and here within myself, sitting at the dock of a bay, wasting time, is my home. that this moment is my home, that I am my own home, right here where I am with the loneliness, tired bones, all the work I've had to do, all the hopes that I've had, the love of my family that I have left behind. And here in this moment, I'm home. So beautiful. And so the last stanza of the song, he just sings again. Now I'm just going to sit at the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away, sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. And that is a gorgeous, beautiful, so lovely. And there are a lot of lessons here in this song. There are the lessons of being home where you are, being home with what you know, being home with who you are, being home wherever you may be sitting and wasting time. And I just really appreciate the beauty of this song. And there's no simpleness to this song. The lyrics feel simple, but they offer a lot of depth and warmth and revelation about presence, about belonging, about sacrifice, about love, love for your art, love for your craft, love for what you believe in. And then the whistling comes in. And we know now that that wasn't intended, that those were supposed to be more words. And then that's where the song gets left, because he died only 3 days later, which is wild. You know, that whistling of just really indicating I'm here and I'm just leisurely absorbing my day, and I'm whistling as I work, so to speak. So Otis Redding, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. So tell me in the comments what you think, what you learned. What does the song mean to you? Do you have a story that's connected to this song? Have you just sat on the dock of a bay and watched the tide roll away? Literally or metaphorically? How do you just sit on the dock of a bay? Thank you so much. I look forward to reading your comments, and I will definitely respond. And I appreciate you taking the time to be here with me now as we've sat in our own dock of our music bay. And make the most of your moments. Take that time. Observe. Watch the tide roll away. I'm your hostess, Jana Lopez. Thanks for joining me. Until next week, keep your vinyl spinning and poetry flowing. Thank you for joining me for this week's show of Vinyl Poetry Lounge. I'm your hostess, Jana Lopez. Keep your vinyl spinning and poetry flowing till we meet again next time.